So I am Baruch Fleischman. I am the lift manager at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. And we're going to fly deep into space, but we want to remind you that this is the work of Yaakov Kronenberg, Jewish Astrology, a Cosmic Science. This book is available on Amazon. I don't know how much it costs now, $25, $30. Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg never really had a whole lot of money. It's not a sophisticated publication. The way it is, it's in paperback. But it has tremendous ideas in it, and it actually could be divided into several different books. Right now, what are we discussing? Let's just get the topic here. He says, astrology according to Jewish law. Now, the last pieces that we've been listening to, and maybe we're going to have a continuation of it today, is the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar, the great king who destroyed the first holy temple. So we've been listening to Rabbi Avraham Bar Chia as he's going through. We're reading different portions of his book. Turns out that Rabbi Avraham Bar Chia was very familiar with different kinds of idolatry. That is, the use of the planets. And he mentions 4 different kinds, and he has the names of them. So now we're seeing that this also was depicted in the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar. So let's get started over here, and we're right over here, and I'll try to, this is a big book. It's a little bit hard for me to handle in a small space. So he says, from here you can see that the wisdom, which is the astrology, increases fear of heaven and knowledge of God, and reveals the awesomeness of his name and his might. So in this way, instead of leading people to idolatry, it leads people to fear of God and reveals to them how mighty he is. The other 4 types of wisdom of the stars we mentioned, they do not increase fear of heaven, and they are forbidden to engage in, because they lead the person to idol worship and cheapen the fear of heaven. So basically, on this point, Rabbi Abraham finished talking about these 4 forbidden branches of astrology, which were not God-given, but rather they were created by men. While astronomy and astrology, the general rule of what is in the world and was going to happen to people and all the planets and the 4 elements, etc., were given from God to Adam HaRishon and handed over from one person to another in a traditional way. He says, so he said Adam to the school of Shem and Aver, then to Avraham, and then to Babylon and Greece, etc. But this line of tradition, which holds that the planets are only servants of God and have no will of their own, is not a tradition which was part of the 4 branches of astrology that are forbidden. Everything is decreed by God, while the planets are used as intermediaries. So due to the sin of Adam, and in order to provide people with free choice, God distanced himself from the world by having the planets as a kind of intermediary between him and the world. Like kings who have ministers who are intermediaries between them and the ordinary people. But it's the king who's in charge. But the other 4 groups of astrologers later came along and decided that the planets have a free will, and it's possible to appease them by worshiping them or whatever. And they started making offerings to the planets. And these ideas became popular and grew into a big business, which could not end. Because once ideas become business, it's very difficult to end them and close down the business. Let's move this up, see if we can keep it online. Here we go. There are other crafts like them. And if they are not suitable to cause wisdom, they are called crafts or cunning, and the texts call them, or most of them, divination. Like it says in the book of Shmuel, he says number 11. I guess it's Shmuel 2, so it means to say Samuel 2. For the king of Babylon stood at the crossroads at the head of the roads to practice divination. And he shot arrows, inquired of teraphim, and looked into the liver. The arrows mentioned here were possibly sharp arrows. I will say where are we here? I will say to the bad, go and find the arrows. These are the arrows shot from the bow. The king of Babylonia divined with them. It is also possible that the arrows are gravel, like it says in the book of Lamentations. He ground my teeth into gravel. In Hebrew, the chitzim means arrows, and chatzatz means gravel. So it's one says arrows, one is gravel, so they're very similar words, so it could be either one. Also, the bread of falsehood is sweet to men, but afterwards his mouth will be filled with gravel chitzim. And also we find the Arabs that lived in the land of Kedar. Their expertise was to polish stones on the earth, and they would know by this which way to travel, and they would know what to do, and it is possible that this is the meaning of arrows chitzim. So we have different kinds of things that we're working with to go through that. The teraphim, now this is going back to Lovin, were shapes and figures, says pictures, like visions in a glass, many images which they were gazing at. Whatever they would try to decide to do something, whenever they would try to do something, they would look to see if it was good and would benefit them. And what they would see in that vision, they would rely on. Now, let me see. Now we find in these lands something similar to Raphim, like those who gaze in glass bottles filled with water, which are placed on something red, and they don't lift up their eyes from it, until the image of that which they asked about appears to them in the water of the glass. Maybe today it would be like reading tea leaves or coffee grains, where they could get revisions, or looking at a crystal ball or something. Similarly, they would look at the fingernail, or the shoulder, or an egg that was presented by something polished and bright, like pitch or olive oil. All these are similar to asking teraphim. It is implied from the word torif. What does torif mean? Which is the essential part of the root of the thing, and it is translated salamim, images, shadows, he calls it. Rabbi Sadia Rabbi Golan translate these words as images and pictures. So tselem can mean a shadow, or an image, or a picture of what these people were looking for when they looked at the object to find the future from them. So these are all forbidden to be practiced. And Rabbi Avraham goes on. It is good for a man to forbid himself from doing all those works which the king of Babylonia asked through them, because they were called divinations. And the Torah forbids us from divining, like it says, "They shall not be found among you those who cause his sons and daughters to pass through the fire." That's a whole ritual that is in the 5 books of Moses. One who practices divinations, and astrologer, so he says divinations. An astrologer, he's talking about what he talked to the Chaldeans. One who reads omens as sorcerer, or an animal charmer. One who inquires of Yidoni, or one who consults the dead. These are all different types of forbidden relationships that people can get involved in. They involve a tremendous amount of subjectivity, and there are people who are expressly can be exceptionally submissive to these subtle ideas that are presented by the people who practice these idolatries. This is Baruch Fleischman. This is the Tikkun Elevator Kollel.